So a woman is going to a dinner party at her friend's house and asking for directions, and her friend is telling her, well, first you come down the street with your left elbow, you want to open the front door, and then with your right elbow, you want to ring the buzzer. With your left elbow again, push open the next door, and when you get to the elevator, you can use your right elbow to push the elevator button. Get in the elevator, bend down, use your nose to push the 7th floor. Get out on the 7th floor and just bang your left elbow into the door a couple of times. I'll come open it for you. The woman says, what's with all the elbow talk? What is this? And her friend replies, what? You're not bringing anything.
Okay.
We got the chuckle.
There we go.
Welcome in to another special they're all special editions, okay? So it's an edition, but It is a special edition of TBL News the Pod, or if you're watching us over there on TBL TV or YouTube, TBL News the Video Pod. I'm sitting down once again with our friend Chris Cox. It's an interesting one for Chris. The Fire coming off a loss. How you been sleeping the past couple of nights, man? You're not used to this.
Not terribly used to this, following the Fire. Even last year didn't happen too often, but it's basketball. Teams are going to lose. You're probably not going to go undefeated. So it's a weird feeling, but you know what? It's all right.
No, you can't win them all. Sometimes you do. I mean, the days of John Wooden are probably pretty far behind us now.
Yeah.
So let's talk Bobby Knight. I wonder, were they the last one? Oh boy, we're going to go down a rabbit hole. You know what? No rabbit holes. We're about efficiency here on TBL News. Okay. So we're not going to go down any undefeated rabbit holes. We can talk about the UConn women's basketball team some other time. Or right. Notre Dame field hockey? Notre Dame soccer? Somebody. What did I just say? No rabbit holes. Moving on. Let's go back to Thursday night. Let's lighten the mood a little bit. Sure. Thursday night, you got Enid at home. Mm-hmm. You win the game. You win 102-91. But let's admit it, it wasn't all that pretty, was it?
It wasn't the cleanest game. It was tough.
You had KD Moore and Maston there combined to shoot 10 of 17 from the floor. They're a bright spot. The rest of the team was 22 of 64.
Yeah.
Again, unusual stuff for the Fire, but you did pull out the 102-91 win. The difference probably was on the boards. The Fire snagged 62, Enid only 48. So if I put you in a DeLorean, I fire up the flux capacitor, 1.21 gigawatts, and I send you back to about 10 p.m. Central Thursday time. You're coming off the Enid win. At that point in time, are you feeling nervous about the next Enid matchup that was coming up in like 72 hours, something like that?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, you look at just the way that the schedule shaped up and the way that the schedule was put out there, and the Fire were playing 3 games in 4 nights. It was an afternoon game off of an evening back-to-back situation. Enid had 2 days to prepare, and we're only preparing for the Fire and only correcting the mistakes they made against the Fire, while the Fire had a game against Little Rock in between those 2 Enid games. So that by itself, kind of, you look at the calendar, you look at the schedule, and you say, okay, this is going to be a tough matchup no matter what happens. But then you watch the game on Thursday, and the Fire got an 11-point victory, and you do see some things there where it's like, okay, Enid's going to pose some problems, not only on Sunday, as we saw, but then throughout the rest of the season. Enid has a lot of length. And just the way that they use that length gave the Fire some trouble. I don't think it's anything that they can't adjust to and figure out for the next time that they play after the All-Star break. But I do think that it is something that does pose a problem for the Fire, especially the lengths that the Enid guards have. Enid's throwing out guards that are 6'4". I think Marvin Johnson's listed as a guard, and he's 6'6". And with,
a big guard.
With probably a longer wingspan than that. So, I mean, you got length at the guard position that the Fire, and frankly, a lot of teams just will have a hard time matching up with.
Yeah, and when we were chatting about that length, you mentioned Enid falls back into a zone.
They do, yeah. They have a couple different zone defenses that they play, but they fall into that zone, and you put those 2 guards at the top of the zone, and they can, with their length, cover a lot of ground. We'll talk about Little Rock here in a little bit, but they tried to play some zone after seeing it give the Fire some trouble. They tried to play some zone on Saturday, and the Fire were able to adjust to that a lot easier. 1, because they were more familiar with the zone. 2, Little Rock just didn't have the length that Enid has. So, with the zone, you try to get the ball inside, try to break the zone down that way, and the Fire would get the ball inside to their bigs, and Enid would collapse on it like you want, but then they're able to only take 1 or 2 steps, and they're back on those 3-point shooters. So they're able to recover a lot quicker.
Yeah, look, you're talking to a Syracuse boy, an Orangeman through and through. I know a thing or two about zone recoveries, but you make a very good point about Little Rock trying out the zone. You do have to be built for it, and there also is a lot of study that goes into it. It seems like, okay, I'm just going to stand in this area for a while, easy peasy, but it's the intricacies of the zone that actually make it work. Were you impressed by Enid's zone?
Yeah, I really was, because it's not, at least up to that point in the season, we hadn't seen it on, with any of the teams that the Fire have played. The Fire haven't really shown it. I mean, Shreveport will throw it in there on occasion, but it's for, a possession or two, and then they'll go back to man and, do some other things. So it's not something that you see very often. You see it some in college now. You still don't even see it a ton in college anymore.
Yeah, less and less frequently.
You see it a lot at the high school level. I cover high school sports as well, and you see it a lot at the high school level, but you don't see it much past that. Some in college, but not really anywhere in the pros. And so I think, especially on Thursday, with the Fire seeing it for the first time, it kind of threw them off a little bit, and they had to work through some of those adjustments, and they were able to on Thursday and get the win. Right. So
before we skip ahead to what happened on Sunday, let's first talk about that Little Rock game. You mentioned that Little Rock game. Look, you could show up any given day, and these are professional players. Little Rock could beat Potawatomi. More often than not, they won't.
They gave him a tough go of it the first time that they played. I mean, it was back and forth for 3 quarters, and Little Rock had chances to win that game. The Fire were able to pull it out in the 4th, but you go into that game on Saturday and you kind of think, okay, Little Rock has some talent. It should be another close, tough game, and it frankly, it just didn't turn out that way. The Fire came out on fire and really put Little Rock away fairly early.
And we talked about the rebounding numbers when we were chatting before we actually hit the record button here. So Potawatomi actually got out-rebounded in this one, and it's kind of a significant margin too. It was 67-52. No one on Potawatomi had double-digit boards. But you told me something interesting. Why don't you cue the listeners into what you told me that I found pretty interesting?
Yeah, it was one of those things that you didn't really notice that during the course of the game. I looked at the final stats after the game and saw that they had been out rebounded by 15. I was like, that's surprising, because it just didn't feel like that during the course of the game. It didn't feel like, because a lot of times if you're being out rebounded, it's gonna go the other way. The other team's gonna have a much better chance to win. But it just didn't feel like that the rebounding numbers were that off. I think what it was, the Fire just didn't grab as many offensive rebounds as they typically do. Little Rock was able to grab a lot of those defensive boards, and I don't know if that was on purpose or by design by Coach Danoff, but I do know Little Rock likes to get out in transition and run. And they have guys that can do that. So I think there was more of a thought process maybe of the guys after a shot goes up of falling back and getting ready to play defense off transition, and just getting 5 guys back there, because in that first game they did get burned on transition a few times. So maybe not trying to press the offensive glass as much as they typically do because of that.
So I'll tell you what, here's what we're going to do, Chris. TBL News is awarding Coach Danhoff 2 gold stars, and you are getting awarded 1 gold star. We're going to assume this was done on purpose. That sounds like some pretty advanced tactics to me. Say, you know what, guys, don't hit the offensive board as hard as we usually do. We got to get back on D.
Right.
And you, Mr. Cox, for picking up on those advanced tactics, you get a gold star as well.
Well, thank you. What do I get for that gold star?
You get a gold star. So you beat Little Rock. You're not, you as the broadcaster, the voice of the Potawatomi Fire, aren't sitting there saying, oh, shoot, we got some things to clean up. Seems like you played a pretty decent game against Little Rock, again, coming out with a 122-96 road win.
Yeah,
but now
the starters said essentially the entire 4th quarter.
Okay, another point you had just made was statistics for all you fantasy junkies out there. They don't always tell the whole story. All right, you got to watch the games.
Yeah.
So you're not sitting there shaking in your boots about Sunday, but that said, now you got to travel from Little Rock, and that was an evening game.
Yeah, you were traveling from both the Thursday game and the Sunday game were at home, and then we hit the road to travel to Enid. Yeah, on Sunday.
Right. That's right. Little Rock is at home. Enid's on the road.
Correct.
So you got to pick up nonetheless. Short night of sleep. Travel over to Enid.
About 2.5 hours. About 2.5 hours on a bus. Yeah, it was going to be a tough game. I mean, like I was saying, just the way the schedule was built for this past week, that was designed to be a tough game. It was going to be no matter what the
Mm.
situation was, and so it go into an arena that it's that Enid has a pretty good fan base. They had several hundred people there at the arena. They were excited for the game. They were ready to make noise, and you got to give the fans credit. They definitely did that. They were making noise.
Mhm.
They were giving the Fire players some heck. We'll put it that way, giving them heck.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
but it was a good environment. And also, I want to give credit to the Fire fans. There was a strong contingent of Fire fans that made the 2.5 hour trip over.
There you go. You got to travel well,
Yeah,
Fire fans.
exactly, and they
It's
did.
not that long of a trip.
Nah,
And it's nice and flat too.
it is very
You're
flat.
not
Yeah.
negotiating too many hills between Enid
No,
and Shawnee.
it's about 3 turns depending on what highways you take.
So you can put that puppy in neutral for a lot of that trip. You can save on
There you
gas.
go. There you go.
So it's a whiteout at Stride Bank Center. As you said, it's a difficult turnaround to make.
Right.
Tough game against Enid one night. You get one night of sleep. Then Little Rock again. You can't sleep on anybody in this league,
Right.
particularly a good team like Little Rock. And now you got to play Enid again. Enid might have been a little bit more prepared than Fire were for that reason.
Yeah, I think so. And I think you look at too, just after that Thursday game, Enid was able to get home, and then their next game was against the Fire again. So the adjustments that they had to make, they didn't have to install a new game plan for a different team. They just had to make tweaks to the one that they had against the Fire because, again, Fire won that game by 11 on Thursday, but it was much closer than that. Just watching the game play out, it was much closer than 11 points. And so Enid really only had to make tweaks. They didn't have to overhaul anything, and they made tweaks, and it worked.
So coming off that Enid loss now we're back in the present, and we're looking forward to a tough weekend.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's not going to be easy.
They're both home games, right?
Both home games, yep.
Both home games, yeah, Friday nights, Shreveport.
Yep, Shreveport Mavericks, the probably, if not one of the hottest teams, the hottest team in all of TBL. 6 straight wins. The only loss was season opener to the Fire.
I don't think they took too kindly to that opening night beatdown in front of the home crowd. That
No, I
was
don't think so.
dastardly of you. My goodness.
Yeah, well.
You gave them bulletin board material, Potawatomi, so you do it to yourself sometime. It's the fate of those who are sometimes too successful.
Well,
But anyway,
I don't know if I'd go that far.
Let's talk about Shreveport before we talk about Wichita. Any chance we're seeing a 30, 40, 50 point win again, or Shreveport
I
they've
don't
righted the
think
ship?
so. I don't think so. I think they've righted the ship. They've added a couple guys back to the roster that were on the team last year, and I know that's helped out a lot. One guy who missed some time early in the season, including that season opener, he's played the past 4 games and is averaging, 24 points, something like that.
Well, that'll
in the
help
last 4
out.
games. So they have 3 guys averaging over 20 points, and they're all good shooters. All 3 of those guys are. But I don't think it's going to be another 30, 40 point victory like it was on the season opener. I think Coach Tucker has kind of righted the ship with the Mavericks, and they're going to be tough. It's going to be a tough game. I think it's one that the Fire, if they play to their ability, it's one that they're definitely capable of winning. But I would imagine it'll be a much closer game than what we saw the first time around.
Well, you might try to get some of those Shawnee faithful on a party bus and drive them on over to Shreveport. How far is Shreveport?
Oh, we don't have to go anywhere right now. It's all here in Shawnee this weekend.
See what you see. What you're seeing here, folks. Just a little peel back of the curtain. Okay, Chris was the one who was telling me before we started that he's got 2 kids at home, and so he's got a little cold. But now me, with just the one little baby, I'm the one with daddy brain. The Fire are at home for this one. No traveling.
Nope.
Shreveport's coming to town.
Yeah.
Shreveport fans stay at home. All right,
that's fine.
watch this one on TBL TV.
They'll bring a good group of fans. They did last year. They did for the playoffs last year, and they'll do that again, I'm sure.
One of the nice things about TBL teams is the fans, man, they're faithful. They travel. So we should see some Mavericks shirts in that beautiful Fire Lake Arena.
Probably.
And Friday
Hopefully
night.
not too many, though.
Well, regardless, we'll be looking out for the Fire to Well, now they need to right the ship a little bit. Nothing
Yeah.
major. It's obviously not panic time.
Right.
But they need to make some adjustments. And after Shreveport, doesn't get any easier.
No, not
Then you
at all.
play who is now the toast of the town, the current first place team, the newcomers on the scene, those Wichita Sky Kings.
Yeah.
They're new guys. Nobody has seen too much of them.
Right.
What are some first impressions you've got of these Sky Kings?
Little bit that I've seen and that I've heard about the Sky Kings talking with the Fire coaching staff is that it's, they have some good shooters. They have, a lot of 3-point shooters who aren't afraid to pull the trigger. Their point guard, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but their point guard is a true point guard. He's capable of scoring, but he's looking to get his guys in position and set them up first. And they have, I want to say 5 guys averaging double figures in scoring. So they have balance, and they have depth, and you can look at the numbers and see that, but on tape that balance shows up as well. So I think this will be a good matchup for the Fire. I think from the little bit I can tell, Wichita might shoot some more threes in the Fire, but they're built kind of similarly, like I said, with a lot of depth, with 4, 5, 6 guys that could lead the team in scoring on any given night. A point guard who can get his in terms of getting points, but also wants to set everybody else up. I think these two it'll be interesting to see how it plays out on the court, but I think these two teams might kind of mirror each other a little bit.
Well, we could be looking into the future then with this matchup.
It's possible.
Maybe there's a conference championship on the line between Wichita and Potawatomi someday. I'll tell you that there's a name on that Wichita team that will likely be on your lips as you make the call.
Okay.
In the stats in the roster sheets that you get, his name might be listed as Theodore Allen. He's better known as Teddy Buckets. And Teddy Buckets it is no misnomer. I think he's pouring in something like 28 a game.
Somewhere around there. Yeah, 27 and a half, 28, something like that. Yeah, I saw that.
So among those shooters that you say Deshaun and the boys need to look out for, Teddy Buckets certainly tops that list. So look, we'll be watching. We're wishing you luck. I'm here at TBL News, man. I'm impartial. I have fun talking to you, and I like the team a lot. But I'm just looking forward to some good basketball. And this weekend, folks, there's going to be some good basketball at Fire Lake Arena. The defending champion, Shreveport Mavericks, coming back to town, and the currently first place Wichita Sky Kings also coming to town. Chris, always a pleasure, man. Thanks for sitting down with me.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a big weekend, and it's going to go, even though it's all leading into the All-Star break and there's still basically 2/3 of the season left, there will be, this weekend could go a long way in playoff positioning and who's first, second, third, because right now, Fire are in second place because of a head-to-head win over Shreveport and only a half a game behind Wichita because Wichita's just played one more game. So this weekend's going to be big.
A very valid point. A ball bounces this way or that.
Yeah.
And now you're talking about teams switching places and home venues come playoff time. So it's crucial. Tune in, folks. There's going to be some good stuff.
All right. It'll be fun.
Chris, thank you.
Nick, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And here comes that part in the podcast where I say something along the lines of, it's so stupid at this point, isn't it? Even I'm getting bored of it. But now so like once you come up with a bit and you do it a few times, you feel attached to it, like you can't let it go. So I'm going to say something like, Chris, you've been at this a long time. You're a professional. I'm just a mere novice. And I don't have enough stripes on the belt yet to know exactly how to get out of one of these podcasts.
Oh, I don't
know how to take us to commercial. So I'll say something along the lines of, from the TBL News Desk, signing off.
All right, that works.
Big guys, no, I'm not kidding there. It's a big weekend for you guys.
It really is.
Pumped up. I know you've done a lot of this, but you got to get pumped up for a weekend like this, right?
Oh, I do, absolutely, yeah. No, I get excited, and I think it's one of those things right now. It's like I'm still looking ahead.